All right, guys. Here is my new Boba Fett EE-3, the ROTJ version, Return of the Jedi. I did this one after I did the flare gun kit that this blaster is based off of, and so I did the flare gun. I did this blaster, and then this blaster has now turned into um, my custom version of a concept blaster rifle um, that was done for a Star Wars game that was never released, which was Star Wars 1313. The concept artist in that one did a rifle um, concept that was based off of this blaster, and so I took from his concept art and created my own rifle. And that will be released here real shortly, just after this one, if not on this same day. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the E3, the OTJ version inspired kit, and look at the parts and go ahead and assemble one. And so it basically assembles pretty much the same way as the flare gun did, except with the differences. It's of course it's got a different barrel, and it's got a scope on it, and the gribbles and stuff that was added to it, like the little rocket um, rails and stuff from the model kit, and some of the molding stuff. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we're going to set some of these parts off to the side. This one I went through and I tried to capture as many details as I could from all the different things out there, even some of the reference pictures that showed that from certain angles on this backside. Let me slide that together. If you were looking down the backside of there was a hexagon pattern that was visible on the movie used version, and pretty much a hexagon pattern. I know what it is because this is basically like forget what they were called. They were like a big socket that was used to turn big valves on and off. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But let me set some of this stuff off to the side, and we'll go ahead and we're just going to kind of go from the back, which is the stock, and of course go forward and stuff. Let me set a lot of this out of the way. We'll need the hammer. We'll need the trigger guard. We get the springs and stuff out of the way and all the screws. And this one does also on the scope. It does have a hollow scope, and it does have lenses that will be, acrylic lenses that will come with it. Let's get this out of the way and these little parts. We'll need these here in a minute. So we're going to do the stock first. There's the gribbles. There's that. Try to kind of get this in the order in which we're going to need it. But real quick, it's just like the flare gun stock. Now this has been changed a little bit from the flare gun stock, because the flare gun stock I modeled to be just like the flare gun. But when they used the flare gun for this, they actually flattened each side of this stock a little bit, which you can clearly see by looking at it. That the sides have been just flattened just a bit, where the flare gun had continued a slight raised round area. They flattened this, and mainly what I gather from it, the reason they did it was so that the gribbles would actually set on there flat and look decent and stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the stock together real quick. There's, it leaves a small light seam. Michael with Fan Fiction Props actually has painted up a version of this, which I'll be posting pictures with it and stuff. And it, basically he got rid of the seam with just the filler primer that he starts with. But let's go ahead and that'll go together just fine. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get us some glue here. This is the same CA glue that I use on everything. It's a 2 parts activator with the thick CA glue. Basically, you can use thick super glue. I used to use epoxy for a lot of things, but there's just not a reason to use epoxy on things really much anymore. Um, just, I mean, the thick super glue or the CA glue does such an awesome job of sticking this whole thing together. Hang on a second. Just getting a better press on it there. Does a good job. I mean, you basically will break this everywhere but where it was ever glued at. So, and actually, I should have went around and cleaned up the flashing on that a little bit before I glued that together. But, you know, this is going to end up on my wall of silver, my wall of silver that I have, which is what I call all my models that I never get a chance to paint or finish or anything. But once that's glued together and then you prime this whole thing with some filler primer and you go back and do a real quick light sanding, the seam's gone. And then, you know, of course, this is all a process that what I'm doing would take place after you've got done painting everything. So we're skipping the painting part and going straight to the assembly. So on these side gribbles, just make sure that the raised rail is back on facing backwards, and put a little activator on there and drop it in. Wait just a second. Gribbles on. Flip it over. Do the exact same thing. Faces the same way. The raised part of this gribble needs to be to the back side. That in there, let it set. We're set. Now the little gribbles, I'm actually having to look at a picture over here because it's been a while since, it's been 3 or 4 weeks since I did this model, so I'm having to remember exactly how these go on there. So that goes basically hole forward. It's got the big hole, and the whole big hole goes forward. Little activator. Drop it on there. All right, and there we go. So we've got our stock for that, and this thing is, I mean, hard as a freaking rock. I probably actually used too much filament in it. That right there alone is probably a pound, but I'd rather things be solid than not solid. So now here, let me go through my screws here and get my head wrapped around this, because that's, boom. Got some screws here that are all the same length and some that are not. And of course, on the little build sheet that's on the website and stuff, I've got all the screws listed and kind of, and it points to where they're at and all that good stuff. Okay, there's 3 of those. There's 3 of those. Actually, there's more. There's 4. All right, so if I'm not badly mistaken, these are our scope screws. Let me just hold these up here real quick. Yep, our scope screws. So you got 4 flat blade cheese heads that are one size, and then you have 3 that are different size. And these 3 will screw the bracket onto the stock and then the actual grip body onto the stock bracket. So now you can decide if you want to or not. Of course, I made these screws fit in the fitment to where you don't have to glue this bracket on. And I specifically did it because after you screw it on, you can still get a flex in here, which is what I prefer. You may not, but this flex is, this bracket here is absolutely super duper solidly thick. I think it's got 8 or 9 walls thick on the sides. It's got a solid layer every 3 layers. I mean, it's solid. It'd be extremely hard to break this. You'd literally have to fall down probably the stairs with your blaster before it would break. But the reason for this flex in there is even when you're carrying this or you set it down and something pushes on it, it still allows some bow. Like I said, glue it down if you want to, and that is gone. But I prefer not to do that. Screwdriver here. Just because that it's such a long little blaster that it's just, you just don't want to run the risk of basically this is nice and thick and it has good flex to it. There's no sense in robbing the flex out of it. You'll see when we get it together, it's not even a flex that it's not floppy. It's a flex that when you push on it, it will give, which is a good thing. But these flat blade screws, what I always tell everyone on long screws like this, I go about halfway and stop, and get me another one and start. The reason being is these screws are actually cutting threads into the holes into the stock. And it's with any long screw. When they screw in, it's generating a lot of heat between the plastic and the screw. And I'm talking about enough heat that if you took this screw out real quick and put it in the palm of your hand, it would burn the crap out of your hand. That's how hot these screws get from the friction of going in. So whether it's PLA, ABS, nylon, blah, 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 you will exceed the rating of any of that plastic if you screw them in too deep and too fast. That's why I tell people, do not use a power screwdriver or a drill to put screws in. Man up. It's only a couple screws. It may suck, but man up. Don't put a power nothing on these. And don't get me wrong, flat blade screws are the world's pain in my butt. I hate them. I'm glad that they are no longer used in newer things. Such a pain in my butt. But I run these screws, any long screw like this, I run them in to right before they tighten up and stop. And I will let, if I don't jab a hole in my finger or in my hand real quick, I will let them cool for a good long period of time before I put that last couple turns on it. Because what happens is the hole that it's gone into, it allows all of the plastic around that extremely hot screw, all of it to cool down, and it forms perfect threads. And if you wait for that last couple turns, when it all cools down, you give it those last couple turns and you can torque the piss out of it and you're not going to strip it. It makes some really, really, really good connections. I'll let those set for a minute, but already and here's the flex I was talking about. It from right here to here. See if I can get, but I'm having to bow the crap out to get to do that. And that's a good thing, because when you've got this up and you've got this barrel off the front here and you set this thing down, or you're at a convention and you turn around and somebody hits it or whatever, flex is not a bad thing. Making something too rigid can be just the absolute worst thing that you can do. And like I said, if you want to, and you've got this all painted and you don't care, glue the heck out of it, put it on there, glue it on there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to move any flex to only to right here, which is, it's fine. That's rock solid, but I don't know. I'm just a firm believer is you just don't want to take too much flex out of stuff. Now this is just like the real flare gun. It's got the notch in it. The only difference is on the real flare gun, there was literally, so it all slides in there. There was only one screw straight through this, through to the grip, that actually held this together. And what I did was, just so we don't have to worry about time and movement, and because I also wanted you to be able to take this apart and not have to glue this together, is I put two screws going this direction into this bracket, which are these two Phillips heads, these 10 millimeter long Phillips head screws if I'm a screwdriver. And this way, you don't have to glue this onto here to ever prevent, because no matter what you do, you're going to eventually wear and tear, get some wiggle in there just because having one screw. And you don't want to have to glue this on because you might want to take this stuff apart at one point, which pretty much that's what I've tried to do here. So far, everything we've done, we can take apart except for where we glued the stock onto the back and the gribbles. But as far as all the major parts, we can take them apart and put them back together and all that good stuff. Grabbed a, here, let me just get me a screwdriver bit. I grabbed a much too big of a Phillips. I need number 2, and that is not a number 2, but, or it's close to it, but it's a crappy number 2. Just do it with this smaller. And again, these, they're cutting in, generating a butt ton of heat. So let's not get crazy with them. Screwed it in about halfway. And of course, the faster you go, the more heat it builds up real quick. We're going to let those set for just a minute. And before we torque those down, we're going to wait a minute. This will be the screw that goes through the back side into the grip and holds that together. And while we're doing that, while we're letting that cool off, we're going to get the hammer. And we're going to get our trigger. And we've got our little spring there and there. You'll need the half spring and the full spring. For the half spring is going to be for the trigger, the full spring is for the hammer. The other spring is going to be for the barrel release, which we'll be putting on in just a minute. And so while we're waiting on that, this is the back part of the hammer. You know, I don't know if you can put it on backwards. I guess you could have halfway. It don't fit worth crap. So it only goes on one way and fits nicely one way. So we're going to go in here and we're going to get a little glue in the back side of this, in this little channel here. And we're going to drop that and put a little activator on there. And we're going to stick that together and hold it for a second. And there we go. It's done. I did not clear out some of the support material. There we go. Get that off the table. All right, so our hammer's done. Let's go ahead and torque this down. And really, I could have waited on putting on the stock because it would have made it a little bit easier putting the hammer and stuff in there. But you know, whatever. There you go. All right, we're going to put that on. We're going to put this screw through the body. Come on, fall down in there. There we go. All right, so now it just goes, it goes all the way through, straight into the grip. And again, this is based off of my flare gun kit that I did, and the flare gun kit I did, I had access to a real flare gun as far as measurements and stuff went and all that. So we should be about as damn near accurate as we can possibly get. So fits nicely in your hand. Boom, boom. All right. So now what we're going to do is, let me see here. We should have these 2 flat blades, and that should be the only 2. So then you have 2 flat blades in there, and let me see, remember the size here just so I can, they're 14 millimeters, so they're a little bit longer than a 10, but there's only 2 of them, and that's going to be for the hammer and the trigger area. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in hammer first. Okay. And I mean, you'll just kind of get an idea how it goes together and, you know, all that good stuff. But then you're going to take your half spring and you can put your half spring and twist it counterclockwise, and it will seat down in there. If you twist it clockwise, it just kind of binds up and won't move. Counterclockwise while pushing, it pushes down in there and locks in quite nicely. What I go ahead and do is start a screw So I'm not having to sit here and do this stuff, you know, back it up to where it's not sticking out. And let's go ahead and look down in here. If you notice, there's a hole where this spring will seat. So that's what we're aiming for, is we'll put that in there. Trying to hold my tongue correctly, and so I got that in a little too far. We back that up, and what we do is, now I could look through the other side and go, okay, I don't have it lined up, which I don't. Push it a little bit more, and you can tighten it down a little bit and be like, okay, I think it's hitting the body, which it was. Now I backed it up a little bit, kind of wiggled it, got it to go through the body of the trigger, and we're going to go ahead and keep going until it runs flush. And we're not going to torque those. Those aren't made to be torqued or anything. Matter of fact, I've got a little slack in there, so because you're painting and stuff. So so there's our trigger and all that good stuff. Now on this, it's going to be really hard to show you. I'm trying to look at the camera, and there's a hole right down in there. And basically this spring sits just like that. So let me do my best to get it in there. There we go. All right. So it's in there. So you have the hook on the front, which attaches with the trigger. On the back side, you've got this weird looking little hole with the fangs and stuff on it. That's where our spring is going to go straight in that hole, just like that. What we're going to do is we're going to push straight down. Push straight down while I try to get this in there. All right. We're going to set it to where it would normally set anyways, where the firing pin's going to come through the body. It's setting where it needs to be. You can actually let the back end up and actually see down through the hole here. Like, see, it's covered now. I'm going to back it up a little bit. There you go. The hole is ready. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start this screw in here, and I'm going to try to hold all this while I take my shaky caffeinated hands and screw this flat blade screw in. Uh-oh, I think I hit the hole the first time. First time for everything. Anyways, get this all the way in here. All right, I believe I'm in the right place. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. It operates kind of like it was meant to be like that. Cool EO. All right, cool. So what we're going to do real quick, we'll put the trigger guard on, which if you look through here, all this crap out of the way, you got flat blade and 2 Phillips screws, okay, that are all the same length. They're little 6mm long screws. You want the flat blade, and then you want the other 10mm long Phillips, okay? So what we're going to do here is you have a hole and a hole. From the outside, what's exposed is we will use the flat blade screw that will go up into this hole. And what's not exposed is we will take this and we will go through the body right there and find my Phillips screwdriver. And what we're aiming for is that hole right there. So we're going to put the screw in there. You don't have to worry about being too accurate yet. I'm not going to tighten it all the way down because I got a fiddle fart with this flat blade screw back here. Again, I'm glad this is no longer a thing in more modern things. Don't get me wrong. I love the old school stuff very much. But I think whoever invented the flat blade screw, they should have just skipped over it. Went straight to the Phillips, or hell, straight to the Allen, or whatever the 4-sided screw was. I know they did that for a while, which those were pretty cool. but they even had their downside as well. So when we tighten this, let's make sure that it doesn't twist the trigger guard. There we go, we're tight. So we'll come in here and go ahead and hit this for the last couple little turns. What we can do is run our hand across, feel right there to make sure that it hasn't twisted this as we're, you know, torquing it down. Torquing it, not twerking it. All right, so now the next thing is the barrel release. And what we need here is we've got this super duper long flat blade. And what this is going to do is this, pretty much it goes through here into that body. And you see that slot right there. This is just like the real flare gun is, and this is exactly how it works. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this long spring, okay? We are going to cock the hammer because it's got to be back, because even the firing pin actually goes down through here. We're going to go ahead and lock counterclockwise, lock it in there, lock it good. All right. Now, if you look, there's a hole right there. So we're going to take that. We'll put that in the hole. We're going to push it down, and we are going to take that screw. And this is how simple that flare gun was. And in my flare gun assembly video, you know, I'm talking about, I'm very amazed, because I mean, I'll be 100% honest with you. When I saw this, I was like, there's no way that this weird looking bracket is going to keep this barrel from cocking over. But I'm going to tell you right now, when we bolt all this together, not only does this latch, and you can even do a flick latch and it'll latch it, but you will break this blaster before you will get that to let go unless you push down on that. That little bit of movement locks this like crazy. So let's go ahead and we'll lock that. And while we're at it, where's our last little greeble here that we're going to put on? Let's make sure we don't screw this up. Big hole forward. Oh yeah, there we go. Hang on, I forgot. Don't want to push that in too far yet. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get back on the camera there. So we're just going to go through and put a little there, put a little bit on the back side, because, you know, I'm not putting activator on this one yet because that hole is kind of tight, because this is the side that prints towards the plate. You know, sometimes there's a little raised area there, but all right. So gribble, 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 gribble. Okay. So we've got the first part of this done, built, ready to go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the barrel section. Yep. Okay. Again, you know, I try to pick up, like I said, try to pick up some details in here that I saw that I've actually never seen on any other replicas or anything. But you know, hey, whatever. Anyways, all right. So this will get glued together, and then you've got this big old Phillips screw here, which will go in through the center in here. Really not necessary, but you know, again, it's better safe than sorry, and I like to build things as strong as I can, and to last as long as it can, because you know, hell, our time and money is just that. It's valuable. People that don't understand that and respect people's time and money, they're jackasses, but that's a whole nother story, whole nother conversation. But anyways, speaking of, like, this part right here, the back part of this barrel that's a 8-hour print because of how thick it is. It's almost solid. I mean, it's super, super thick. This front part, super thick. It's I think 10 or 12 walls thick. Just like back here is like 10 or 12 walls thick on this. Super, super, super strong. And so we're going to go ahead and just put this screw down in there. And this is one of these long-winded screws that you'll be tempted to grab you a drill. Don't do it. I'm just moving off camera here so I can hold this against my belly while I screw this in. The 9 million mile long screw. Basically, this is, I mean, this just gives that extra little bit of protection right here on that joint, right in the center. Hang on. I had glue on the side of my hand. It gives that extra protection right there. You know, it's already a super duper strong joint anyways. Let me see if this is cooled off some. I'm taking my screw in steps here, so. All right, let that cool for a minute. You can kind of feel when it's starting to get too hot because it almost feels a little, starts to feel a little mushy as you're pushing it in there and stuff. All right, well, we will take turns on this screw because, yeah, what's the screw that's left right now? You can touch it. That sucker's hot. What we're going to do real quick is you've got two 20 millimeter long socket head screws. What these do is these hold on the scope blocks. So, I mean, you could just glue them and that could be all that's needed. Oops, let me change up the tips here. Yeah. Isn't that tip a flying? Oh, all right now. All right, anyways, so let's get this screwed in here. And I did a little something extra here on these blocks. Normally the blocks didn't have this loop on top. You would have the scope where you would tighten it down and it would pinch those blocks that they made. But what I did was, and you can't see them when you put the scope on, but when you put the screw through the scope, it actually goes through this so that no matter what, even if that screw gets a little loose, you're not going to get the scope off because it's actually trapped with that. So it's just one of those little extra things to help minimize losing anything or any of that. So we'll go ahead on this front. And I'll show you something about the front barrel here. When I get this long-winded screw in here. And again, I could glue this block on, but there's no need to. I did go ahead and do the undercutting for these ribs. And I even on this section, they're undercut. So when you paint and get done like painting, as long as you don't glob your paint on, you still have that undercut where it still looks like those parts on there. I even did these two little fins, one shorter than the other because the screen used one was that way. So, yeah. And this thing is super duper solid as well. So, what we're going to do is we will glue this on in a minute. And let me get a couple more turns on this screw in here. And we will continue. All right. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and glue this on. We are going to be very liberal with the glue in here. Any shortage of a connection at all. Get our activator, spray it, push it together, and wait. Oh yeah. There we go. Nice and set. Okay. So let's here actually we can go ahead and put the little side the dang what the heck, my brain just went blank. The little rocket rails on the side here. And this is one of these things that they do hang off just like on the real one. So this is one of these things that you want to be careful of. They're glued down. They're glued all the way down the center. You know, on the actual real one, these were flat parts going on a curved surface. And if you notice the screen used ones that they have on show, a lot the tops and bottoms of these are broken and missing because of that exact reason. Because they hang up off the sides of them. So, all right, get that smashed on there. All right, so we're going to set this off to the side for just a second. And we're going to get our scope over here, and we are going to glue this together. All right, so here is where we don't want to screw up our scope, and so that's why looking at the diagram that I supply you is really important. Where there is this notched, knurled back, this is the back of the scope, the back end. These two pieces will fit together either direction. And the thing is like this is wrong, okay? You want the knob mounts to be further towards the front. So if you look at the diagram, it's much longer before you get to the front up here and go together, okay? So let's go ahead and get the rear. And also, before I glue that, just make sure, push it together, look around, make sure it looks straight, because, you know, I just want to make sure that there's not like a little piece of support material or something in there, because, you know, I try to be absolutely thorough when I'm, you know, cleaning these parts and double checking them as I'm bagging them and all that other stuff. But, you know, I'm not going to say I don't miss crap, because I've missed crap. So, eyes be human. Down in there and hold it together as tight as we can and hit it with a little bit of squirt. All right. And now this scope is as accurate as I could possibly get from all the documentation and details out there for the scope that was used. I'm talking about the length, the exact placement of stuff, the barrel sizing, the whole 9 yards. So I did really try to do my due diligence in researching all the different features and stuff. I mean, just because I had noticed that there was a lot of different like replicas of this out there that are nice, are really nice, but the details is where I get stuck, and I get very anal about the details and wanting to make things perfect. And sometimes that's what ends up taking me so long on certain models, is because I just want them to be perfect. Come on, grab a hold. Go now. There we go. All right. So there's the scope. Let's go ahead and get our knobbies put on while that is finishing curing. So really it's, we're going to do our 2 knobs and set these off to the side right there and go squirt. And put them in there and do a little twisty twist just to make sure we get glue in all the right places. And we'll wait a second. That one still hasn't attached. That one did. This one is taking its sweet time. Come on. I don't even think I got hardly any glue in there. Thought we get some glue. Really need to clean the tip of that bottle because it's getting pretty chunky. Let me get these, lay these back over here out of the way. Okay, so even the knob sizes, I as best as I could. I mean, all right. So now here's our lenses. For those of you dirty fingered people like me. Remember, once you glue these in, if there's fingerprints on the backside, you're screwed. So, okay. All right. Here's my thing, and here's what I kind of try to do. If you try to put glue down here on this edge and you put your lens in there, it's going to smush out, and it'll smush out around the lens, and it just looks like shit. You know, just being upfront about that. This is, wait a minute, which side did I just peel the paper off of? Well, crap. Okay, there's my big fingerprints. Okay, so anyways, this is the side I just peeled the paper off of. What I usually do, because the thing is these don't have to be, they're not supporting anything. I put the smallest smidge of glue right on the edge, just right on the edge, and then I take the sucker and I drop it right in there, and I don't care. We can go back and clean all that off after this. All you want it to do is to catch. That's it. I would rather put them in there and realize I didn't have much in there and it pop out on me and me try it again than put too much and I've got freaking super glue smoke marks all over my and that's the other thing also, depending on the super glue, some super glue is what you call very hot. Other words, like when you put it on something you see smoke come off of it. That's really what you want to try to stay away from as far as trying to put a lens in, because that smoke, when it hits acrylic, it won't come off. So that's just an FYI for you. All right, so I'm going to take this paper. I took one side off already. That's the side that I can get fingerprints on. This is the side that, well, crap. Are you kidding me? All right, there we go. All right, there we go. There should be no fingerprints on that side, which somehow it's kind of like eating pancakes. Somehow you end up with sticky stuff in places. You're sitting there and you're like, wait a minute, how did I get syrup behind my ear? You know, just random places. All of a sudden you have sticky stuff show up. There we go. And that edge is all you need, and it looks all yucky right now, but that's just the stuff I sprayed on there. Let it finish setting real quick. All right, well, that's doing that. Now I'm just going to wipe it off with my t-shirt here. See what we got here. It's still all sweaty under there. Yeah, okay. So scope looks straight, nice and solid, put together. Okay. So this is where, you know, we put this sucker down on here and we go, oh my God, we screwed up all the measurements. No, joking. Okay. So we've got 4 flat blade screws here that are all the same length. So basically, I'm trying to think the best way to say it. I'll show you once I get them in, because even Michael with Fan Fiction Props that painted the painted version for me, he thought it was a mistake on my part as far as the screws went. I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. Hang on. Let me get all these damn screws started. They're already making me mad. Trying to hold the thing in place and get a screw started and play Twister with it. But this is a model that I've been wanting to do for freaking ever, man. I like the crap out of them. All right. Had that one screw too far in already. Should be able to screw. Okay, that one went in the hole. Get in the hole. This one went in the hole. So let's get these all the way through and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Because this is what I'm going to show you is the way the actual screen used one is. So again, I tried to cutting through that other side. Get this one in. But yeah, I've been wanting to do this one for a long time. I do want to do the Empire Strikes Back version. And now that I've got the flare gun and slash this one done, it may not be a big stretch. It depends on how well people want this one. Because like I said, you know, there's been kits and models around for a long time. I am very proud of this one. I am proud of the accuracy and the details. I am of all my models I do. Okay. Let me get these last little. These serve only a purpose of looking pretty. Come on, get in there straight. It's hard to do this leaning over to make sure that I'm in camera for you guys. And normally when I'm screwing stuff together like this, I get something started and I'm pretty much holding it up against my chest as I'm screwing things in, especially when it's these flat blade screws. Infuriating screws. All right, let me get this all the way down in there. Anyway, so the thing was, Michael with Fan Fiction had a question for me when he was putting it together after he painted it and stuff. He said the screws you gave me for the scope are too long. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? And so when I went over to his shop and was looking, let me lined up. When I went over to his shop and was looking at what he was talking about, all 4 of these screws stick out on the other side. And this one that I'm putting in now and the other furthest one down there stick out the furthest. But that is actually the way, if you see, sticks out. And that's the way they are on the actual replica, or actually on the screen used one, is they use the same size screws all the way down and they stuck out. So that's what I put on there. I want them to be as close as possible. So there they bees. Let's see. Did I hit the hole? Oh, I hit the hole. 2 for 2. All right. So there is the barrel and the scope and everything together, and it all setting where it needs to be setting, and you can see through the scope, nice and hollow. So if we want to put this together, we just push that down over that. We get this big O screw. We slide that in there. Screw this bad boy all the way through. Make sure I didn't get that too tight. So should be able to push that down, and we latch, and it comes right back up, and it's tight as you're like I said, you're going to break this trying to get that to come loose. But you know, that's what I was saying. So that is that whole pretty thing right there. I like it. I like it a lot. But so there's the ROTJ version. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to send me a message, ask, or whatever. I am a little slow getting back to questions on YouTube just because YouTube the notifications aren't the best. But there's orange tip too, by the way, so we make sure that we stay all compliant and all that good stuff. But yeah, so here is the EE-3. I will be doing an assembly video and everything for my custom rifle here just shortly, and I'll have that up as well. Thanks, guys.